So first off, I apologize for wearing sunglasses while I'm talking, but in front of the sun is like right in front of my face. But in this video, I want to talk about how the weather, like how the season affects my anxiety personally. Um, Personally for myself, when it's hot, um, it spikes up because when it's hot and you feel like you get that sensation where you feel like you can't breathe, you can't catch your breath. It's worse when it's hot because because the air is like hot, humid, and then you feel like you're choking. Sometimes you feel like the clothes you're wearing is too tight, especially when it's hot. You're sweating, and when you get like hot flashes and you're sweaty with anxiety. When it's hot, you start sweating, and then once you start sweating more because of anxiety, you start wondering why you get sweaty, why you sweaty, but you're not using your logic brain. You're sweating because not just because of anxiety, but because it's hot and it's humid. And like right now, I don't know why I'm wearing a black shirt. It just makes it even hotter. And when it gets hotter, you start thinking, okay, is it really hot outside? Why do I feel like it's hot? And then you feel the hot air, the spring, the summer heat, and then you start thinking, okay, you start thinking, okay, it's only like, let's say 11 a.m. 12 noon. Why does it feel hot? Like for me, I live in California, so it gets hot around 11 o'clock a.m. and it gets by like 2, 3 o'clock. That's when it peaks, and it gets even hotter around like 2, 3, 4 o'clock. So the hotter it is, the more you start questioning yourself. Does it feel hot? Sometimes like I'll ask my daughter, do you feel like it just got hot out of nowhere? And then she'll say, yes, it did. And then I'm like, okay, I thought I was the only one. Then it's like it plays mind games on you, and then you start thinking, okay, and then when it's really hot and there's like no air, then you start looking around. You don't see like the leaves from the trees moving, or anything moving because there's no air. Then you start thinking, oh my god, why do then you start thinking like, well, I feel detached. I must be dreaming because everything around me is just staying still. The trees, the leaves on the trees, the plants, whatever, they're not moving because there's no air. Where there's hot air, cold air, there's no air, and then you start thinking, oh my god, so yes. And when it's too sunny, and then sometimes when you feel faint, you feel like you're gonna black out. You can't open your eyes when it's sunny, especially you're not wearing sunglasses because your eyes can't handle the sunlight in your face for too long. Then you're like shutting down your eyes, and then you start thinking, oh my god, I'm gonna faint. But it's really because it's so sunny and you're not wearing sunglasses, then you can't keep your eyes open because you're sensitive to light. Especially you get headaches, migraine, any kind of head pressure, you're sensitive to the light. So that's why sometimes when it's hot, my anxiety creeps up. But this last spring, summer, 2017, I was perfectly fine. So it's just like, you just gotta get used to the season change, In 2016, when I started having panic attacks in spring 2016, I didn't get it into like mid-May. That's when my anxiety started, and then it got worse in June, July. Then it slowly got better in like August, September of 2016. towards like the last month and a half of summer, and then it spiked back up once fall came around in 2016. So my next thing will be fall, winter. Why does it get worse? It's because like when it gets cold, and then and those of us with anxiety, we start sweating, and we sweat when it's hot. We sweat even more when it's hot, but once it's winter or fall, when it's cold, we start wondering how come we're sweating when it's cold. Then our mind starts going crazy. It's like, why am I sweating when it's cold? Then you start asking around people, why am I sweating when it's cold? How am I the only one that sweats when it's cold? You start asking why this, why that. How you start comparing yourself to other people that has no anxiety. How you start comparing yourself to people that has anxiety. I do the same things. Not as much as I used to, but you just want to make sure you're not the only one that feels the way you feel, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you keep doing it over and over, then you start having health anxiety. Right now I don't really have health anxiety because I stopped asking people, hey, is it me or they just got darker? Can you listen to my heart? Does it sound strange to you? I'll ask someone, hey, do you get chest pains? Hey, do you get these kind of rashes? Things like that. The other thing, when it's cold and it's cloudy, you start asking yourself, other people, okay, it's 70 degrees. Right here in California, 70 degrees it's not really hot. It's not really cold. It's just, to me, it's perfect. It just depends on where you live in California and your preference of the perfect weather. When it's 70, like during the fall, just when summer just ended a couple of weeks, I would say, okay, it's 70 degrees. Why do I feel hot? But at the same time, why do I feel cold? Why am I sweating when it's 70 degrees? And then when it gets cloudy, sometimes you start feeling detached as well, because as the clouds pass by the sun and it covers the sun, you start thinking they just get dark, and then they get light. They get dark, they get light. You start asking all these questions. For me personally, it just depends. Sometimes I feel better when it's raining and it's cold. Sometimes I feel better when it's hot. It just depends, but you just have to get used to the season. Doesn't matter if it's hot and it's cold. You just have to get used to it. The best thing to get used to it, how you get used to it, is just go outside. The earlier, the better. For me, when it's spring, summer, it's best to go outside around 9-10 a.m. if you can wake up early. For me, I've been getting more sleep, so once I sleep for like 6+ hours and I wake up at, let's say, 5 a.m., I'll go back to sleep till 7-8 o'clock, and then I'll just stay off my bed. And then once it hits like 9-10 a.m., that's when I go outside and just sit down in my backyard, and then just to feel the weather slowly getting hotter and hotter. And then once you get used to it, then you can start going outside when it's like, once it gets hotter, around 2-3 o'clock, depending on where you live. Then you get used to it, and then you get comfortable with it. Once you get comfortable with it, your anxiety from the season change will slowly decrease. You might feel worse at first, but once you get used to it, it gets easier each time. But that's how, for me, that's how personally the weather affects me. When it's hot and I feel like I can't breathe, it gets worse. When I'm always sweating and it's hot, I sweat even more. And then there's sometimes I get like cold chills when it's hot. And then I start asking, why am I cold when it's hot? It's same thing when it's cold. I ask myself, why am I hot? Why am I sweating when it's hot? Anyways, that's pretty much it.